The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Ben Ark from BTC IoT,
Cheers all to freedom of transaction.
Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor,
Greetings.
Josh Gagala from Vaultoro.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, Minnesota on fire. A police officer has been charged with murder and manslaughter in the restraint death of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Last night, protesters burned a police station and a CNN crew was arrested by police. The day before, protesters peacefully protested and were attacked by police officers with tear gas and rubber bullets. The situation in Minnesota continues to get worse, but now at least one of the officers has been arrested. The other three officers are still free right now. Ben Ark, your thoughts on the continuing situation in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a US citizen, so I can't speak too much on this topic. But I will say that I'm a big fan of. If you've ever listened to or read anything of James Baldwin, there's the civil rights activist in the sort of 60s and 70s and 50s as well. And he had a very good point in that the systemic racism which exists in America, it destroys the American dream, not only for the black people, but then also for the white people. And he was very much of the opinion that it would ultimately destroy the ideals which the kind of American dream is kind of founded upon, and was concerned for white racists as much as he was concerned for black folks. So as I said, I can't really give too much decent input on this topic, but it's tragic, and it's a sign of the times. It's the powder keg we're living in. It feels like the drum beat being hit. There's all this unrest and civil unrest, and it's quite scary. And in times like that, that's when all these tensions and divides kind of have come to the forefront. So yeah, it's tragic and upsetting, but yeah.
And there are just so many aspects to this, in addition to the person who was murdered on the street, the police officers who watched, the other bystanders who watched, the person who filmed. At a certain point, people have to stop filming, people have to stop watching, they have to start interacting, they have to start being involved in the scene that they're involved in. Additionally, we've heard reports that on the first day, there were perhaps agent provocateurs in the crowd riling up the protesters, trying to make it more violent. There's a strange video of a man with an umbrella dressed all in black, smashing windows at an auto zone, perhaps setting the protesters up to make it more violent. And then there's this horrible decision by the prosecuting attorney not to charge the officer the day before. He waits, he's worried, he doesn't have all the evidence, which is often the case, but you can make the charge. You could lose the case later. Convicting a police officer is almost unheard of in the United States, but you need to charge them, especially in a case like this where they have the video. Dan Eve.
Yeah, I watched, I think it's I don't know if it's a 9-minute video, but certainly the officer had his foot on the guy for like 9 minutes. And, no matter what your position is, I don't know how anyone could not watch that and see that it just made me feel sick that he just snuffed the life out of him. Like, he was clearly not fighting back. And the other cops, they were stood there, they weren't doing anything. So no matter which side of the fence you're on, that was some crazy horrid stuff going down. And it's just been it's been the what do you call it, the news has been crazy, like the scenes of like destruction. It's like a war zone. It's definitely kicking off there. And how many more of these, these events are going to happen before something is, does change significantly, or go even worse significantly?
It is like a war zone, Dan. And it's like a war zone on both sides, with the police fully dressed up in their riot gear, shooting tear gas and other grenades. It's similar to what we've seen in Hong Kong. And then today, to watch them arrest the CNN journalists who clearly had a security team, they had a camera crew, they had a producer, they had a microphone. They were actually live on TV during the arrest and after the arrest. I don't know what these officers were thinking. It reminded me very much of in 2014 when the World Crypto Network was covering the Hong Kong umbrella revolution live right here on YouTube. You can check out the footage. James Bang was in the street broadcasting with his phone on the World Crypto Network, as we could do back then. And he was also arrested by police. So it's really a big deja vu, a flash of what happened in Hong Kong, aka China, is now happening here in America. Josh Gagala, your thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, it's a really sad thing to watch, and I only saw little bits of it today. But the fact of the matter is, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening right now, which is in really a dangerous. It's a dangerous time for the USA. You have 40 million people out of a job. You have now race related riots, because this is obviously a very racist thing. The cops have constantly been picking more on Black communities. I mean, this is just a fact. And there's a spark here. I mean, if you look at something like World War I, where you have Franz Ferdinand, it's just this little sparks. These little things can like cause big effects. And with 40 million people out of a job, ready, just bored, let's just take boredom and then frustration. Let's add to that, I need to eat. Let's add to that, I need to feed my kids. This can get out of hand extremely quickly. Then if you get America's, ready to go, on both sides, on the left and the right and the middle, everyone is PO'd. You have militias going and protesting. I can't imagine what would happen if there was Black militias with guns. The police didn't arrest the white guys with guns. If there was a showdown, it can get ugly pretty fast. But at some stage, and this is I don't even know how to really talk about this without causing people's hair on the necks to go up. But at some stage, you got to think, when is killing a cop good? And because you live in the country and you think, oh, that's a danger, don't even talk about that. But if you're in Nazi Germany and they're pulling off a whole bunch of people, or you're in Pol Pot, or you're in, you can look back throughout history and go on, what a terrible state of affairs, if only someone stood up to the authorities that were following, or doing bad things. And
it's not even so much kill, Josh, as it is in this case just push them over. In this case, what we're really starting to see, and there was an incident after this where people were fighting and they started fighting against the police, and they did kind of fight back a little. Then the police came in with more force and they pushed those people back. But in this case, in the video, the officer has his knee on the guy's neck, and he's kind of talking and joking with the crowd. And I think I've only seen an edited version of this video, because it went to black after a little bit. It didn't just show me all 8 minutes or whatever. But there's a strange point where the officer, one of the other officers is joking with the crowd, and he says, "Don't do drugs, kid. Kids don't do drugs." And he's joking around with the crowd as they are suffocating this guy. And all it takes, as much as it would be a personal human sacrifice, you would go to jail for sure. But if you just ran in there and knocked that guy off, maybe he could breathe for a minute, maybe he lives. right?
I mean,
So
is
close.
this not? I mean, this is the main argument for guns, isn't it? For ownership of guns, is that the government and the apparatus of state can't get too out of control because the citizens are armed, and they can that kind of keeps government in check. So I'm not condoning going out and shooting cops or anything, but
No,
I
neither am
think
I.
I think there's a good. I mean, so looking back, I mean, it really is very relevant. World War, the World War One and World War Two. When you look at the unemployment which happened after the Great Depression, it was 25%, and now I think US unemployment is at 30%. And then that was then quite quickly followed by war. During the Second World War, obviously, the Nazis were able to, just they're very compliant citizens, well-behaved Germans who would happily just get in these trains which the Nazis told them to get them in. When the obviously I'm from Britain, when the veterans of the Second World War came home, particularly the Jewish veterans who'd fought, when they went into London, there was and this is something which isn't really spoken about, and it's not really in the history books, but we had a fascist lord called Lord Oswald Mosley, and Lord Oswald Mosley, he had this his fascist following. They were called the Black Shirts. They would have these huge marches, like thousands of people marching through London, and it was the same stuff which the Nazis were saying, get the Jews out, all that sort of stuff. They're very anti-Semitic. And they went into East London. This was after the Second World War. And it was a big rally of like 6,000 Black Shirts and Oswald Mosley. And the idea was to go into East London, tell the Jews to get out and leave the UK. And they went into East London. The Jews came out and just kicked their asses and just beat the fuck out of them. And there were some anti-fascist groups which came. I mean, in fact, Antifa has a very bad name, but look at the 43 group and the good work they did fighting against Oswald Mosley. And then you have to question, like, had some of the Jews in Germany acted in a similar way against the Nazis, then would the Nazis have got as far as they did? So yeah, there is a point in time where it becomes the citizens' responsibility to stand up and say no. The actions which the government are taking are wrong, and then to oppose them. Whether or not you do that through force and violence, I don't know. I mean, our fascist Oswald Mosley, he was taken out through force and violence. They were, they would infiltrate his speeches and then utterly destroy them through violence. Because some of these, Jewish ex-veterans, they were rough and tough dudes, like they could handle themselves. So honestly, anyone out there, if you're interested in that point of history, then do check out. There's a great documentary you'll be able to find on YouTube about the 43 group who were Jewish ex-servicemen, and it's a reminder of why sometimes we need to stand up against oppression by government or state or authority.
Well, and they did have some rebellions against the Holocaust and against the camps, both with the Jewish citizens as well as in Hungary. I can tell you from going to the Terror Museum in Budapest that they had many revolutions both against the Nazi rule there and against the communist rule, and they were put down harshly. So a lot of these things, they do exist, and you say, well, why didn't they fight back? And they did. It's just, on the third day, the Soviets brought in the tanks, and that was the end of that revolution. I think this blends well into the exit question. What do you expect from the future, specifically tonight, now that one of the officers has been charged with a crime and is in police custody? Will the protests go less tonight or more tonight, and will it spread to multiple cities? Let's go to Ben Ark. Go ahead.
I think the real problem is when you've got political leaders who almost are fanning the flames. That's when there's a danger. You have this spark, you have this fire, and then they're not trying to. To me, that just sounds like there's a lot of conflict and division amongst some of the leaders involved in this whole thing. As I said, I'm not a citizen of the US. I can't really comment on this story too much, but I feel like it's going to get worse, sadly, unless the people of Minnesota are able to, take control of the situation, I suppose.
They could always turn the other cheek. Dan Eve.
Well, 2020 has been like a crazy year so far. So it wouldn't even surprise me if like the murmurings of this crazy Nazi rising like in pockets, if there's like an opposing force that comes out like angry about the cop going down or something. I don't know. Anything can happen. It's literally like 2020 has been like some sort of crazy fantasy book with, who'd have thought we'd be in this position like right now with COVID and everything else, like even 6 months ago. I mean, when I was visiting you in Vegas, like, well, there was talk about it, whatever. I've been tracking it, but yeah, the world's upside down. So I don't know. Hopefully they resolve it, and this kind of sends shockwaves to other cops to kind of not put your knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes.
You'd think so, but then it's happened before too. Josh Gagala.
Sadly, I think it's going to get worse because people, like I said, it's not just this. There's a lot. It's just one spark that flames a huge bonfire that's been building for a while. The wood's been stacking, and that's why you have the Black Lives Matters movement and all of these sorts of things. Is a reaction to continued. I mean, the whole race thing is an extremely deep topic. And it's hard to get into, especially as a white guy. It's really hard. But obviously, it doesn't matter the color of this guy. Really, at the end of the day, whether you're white or black, you don't kill someone just because you're wearing a uniform or a costume, I should say. You should be in prison, and it shouldn't take a mayor to come out and push for the arrest or for a charge to be put down for that to happen. I mean, it should just happen. The guy murdered another guy in plain view, and he was wearing a uniform. That guy needs to be arrested straight away. And in fact, I would also say the other cops that are standing around should also be arrested for being complicit. If there's a gang of thugs standing around and one guy's got a knee on another guy and he dies, the whole gang go to court. The whole gang are complicit in the murder of someone. And I don't see how a costume changes any of that. So it needs to be, it just is common sense that if you take race right out of it and you just say, there was a murderer, a psychopath who murdered someone else just because he was wearing a costume. But I think if you do put the racism in, there's a massive stack of backlog that's ready to burn, pardon the pun, and that flame is hard to put out.
Josh is right. There's going to be more riots tonight. As much as I agree with the protesters, they only gave them a fourth of what they wanted. They want all 4 cops to be charged with murder. This is very difficult. It's in these other cases that were also seem very open and shut, where we also had video where they also murdered African-American people. We didn't get the murder charge. So even getting the charge is something, getting the conviction is something else entirely. But I think that it's not just this one case. I think it's all the other cases combined together, and that not just the people of Minnesota have had enough of this, but just America itself. I think they've had enough of this. They want to see the cops charged with murder. And what they want to do is they want to send a message to the rest of the police officers that if you murder someone, you'll get charged with murder. And it seems very basic and simple, but that's not how it's worked for a long, long time. Now, as difficult as it is to move off of this issue, we're going to move on to issue 2. Issue 2. Trump tweets threat that looting will lead to shooting. Twitter put a label on it. This actually started a few days ago when President Trump was harassing TV host Joe Scarborough, saying that he was a murderer and there was a cold case out on him. This was actually not true. The person who died in Representative Scarborough's office at the time had an aneurysm, something wrong with her brain. She died on her desk right there. There was no foul play and there was no affair. The president continued spreading these false rumors about the Kostutsits family, even leading to the widower Kostutsits writing to Twitter. He wrote a very beautiful and elegant letter asking Jack to, at the very least, take down the 3 tweets that falsely accuse his wife of having an affair and falsely accuse Joe Scarborough of murder. There was no foul play. Twitter refused to do that or to touch those tweets at all, instead opting for an interesting middle path. As we've been discussing this week on the Thomas Hunt Show, Twitter faced the Kobayashi Maru, a no-win situation. On one side, Twitter could completely remove the president, as he is in violation of their rules and policy. On the other side, Twitter could do nothing. In the middle, Twitter found a middle path that has led only to more destruction. Twitter chose to label the president's tweets with a fact check button, saying that the president had no information or no evidence on mail-in ballots, putting up a fact check warning. And now on the president's latest tweet saying that looting will lead to shooting, Twitter put up a full violent warning saying that the tweet could inspire violence, but that they should still put it out there and have it on their platform. The president didn't react well to this, copying and pasting the tweet onto the official White House Twitter, which was then also given the violence warning by Twitter. At the same time, the president has tried to move against Twitter, legally launching an executive order attempting to take away Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which allowed Twitter, Facebook, Craigslist, eBay, other platforms online to act as a common carrier, i.e., if Twitter was carrying some really nasty message, it wouldn't be Twitter's fault. They're just a common carrier. All of this has all come together, including the recent shooting. Dan, Eve, your thoughts on the president, Twitter, and we also didn't mention Facebook's come down on the other side, saying that they want to maintain a common carrier and they don't want to be arbiters of truth, adding just one more wrench into this already complicated topic. What do you think, Dan?
It's a very complicated topic, isn't it? Because who fact checks the fact checkers, and who decides what is the truth? Because there's a lot that can, even any statistic can be interpreted two different ways by different people, and and using a combination of them that to try and prove a point with omitting information. That's kind of not truth, but we see that all the time. So that's very difficult ground for them to be able to manage, surely. Especially without having a political sort of bias. And I did see the VP of, or the vice guy, director of ethics or something at Twitter. He like absolutely hates Trump by the sounds of it, calls him Orange Man and stuff. And so you've got that side of it, which is there's a political stance in it, and is that right? Especially deplatforming people, because you don't want to have harm on people and people be threatened and violence incited or whatever. But at the same time, I don't know. It just seems like we're being choked as a society. You've got police departments that are just set up now for name calling on the internet, and it's all a bit crazy. I know. Again, it's 2020, so everything's crazy.
Nothing in 2020 turned out like we thought it would. Josh Gagala, your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, it's I mean, first of all, it's funny because it's just so crazy, but it's not funny because it's happening during a very dangerous time. But where do you start? I mean, social media already is the arbiter of truth. Whatever they allow the search engine to put on the first page, let's not even say number one, on the first page, becomes truth to millions upon millions of people. And YouTube is the biggest search engine in the world, the second biggest, and Google is the first. And they're both owned by Alphabet. Run by Alphabet, so which is Google, and then on top of that, you have every other search engine that does the same. So if you try to escape, it still doesn't really matter, because whatever their algorithm says, you kind of go to and find, and then you can end up in echo chambers if you don't do that, or you can end up in another. So the real problem really is about technology and how we get truth. Now, we're also entering a new phase in human society of what is truth. As in the because now we have these deep fakes. We have deep fake of audio, deep fake of video, and it's very easy to do now. I come from a special effects background. We made special effects for lots of commercials and even movies, and back then it was extremely hard to do. You had to have full silicon graphics boxes, millions of dollars of hardware. You had to really put some effort in, big learning curve. Now you download some crappy script, stick a YouTube video of Trump talking for 30 seconds, and they'll map the face, and you can type in what you want him to say, and he'll say it. And of course, that won't be the best version, but it's only a matter of time until it becomes indistinguishable from anything else. So truth is becoming a very, very vague thing. And I'm not sure how society is going to deal with this. And in terms of this direct topic right now, it's at a point where if you do tell social media to be the arbiter of truth, then you get big problems. Like if you tell them, well, you're going to be sued if you say something that's bad, or you let hate speech or whatever, then that then causes them to basically not be able to function properly, because the amount of data is just vast. Like, there's no possibility apart from AI, which isn't there yet. The only way to deal with social media is social media. People upvote stuff. They unsubscribe if they don't like what you're saying. They downvote you, or they get out of the way, and that's how social media works. And we as a society know. I mean, I know when I watch something, it's not truth until I fact check it myself. And I think the youth of today are a lot better at understanding that than the older generations. But I could go on.
Ben, Ark.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem and what kind of gets people's hair up is that it's a private company making decisions to censor or make decisions or interpret information in a certain way. So we want freedom of information. We want people to be able to have freedom of speech. But in that same respect, we don't want people to be given a legitimate platform. I think the real question and the answer is free and open source software. So when you have a service, privately owned service, which becomes as big as something like Twitter or Facebook or even Amazon, then when does that become a public utility? So when is it used in a way where people demand a certain level of neutrality, which cannot be given by a private company? And the answer to that would be to have some sort of free and open source alternative, where at least there's some democracy in the decision making on how information is brought forward on that platform. So yes, like, Trump harping off and saying all this bollocks on Twitter, like, isn't great. And there's part of me which is quite happy that Twitter then go and stamp this disapproving stamp on his tweets. But in that same breath, Twitter could go the opposite direction, and then they could, depending upon the people who are running Twitter, they could just decide that that they want to promote and legitimize what he's saying even further by saying, yeah, this is factual, or stamping with some other stamp. So I think during this entire pandemic, more and more people have become aware that a lot of these platforms which use, just like Zoom, for example, which are private, it's not ideal that they're privately owned. Like, we should have free and open source alternatives where at least there's some consensus, at least there's some democratization, at least the people who are using that software have a say in how things edited or given a stamp of disapproval or whatever else. It's just another reason. I mean, it's censorship resistance. It's the reason we're all in Bitcoin. Like, it's the same for, something like Twitter. Like if you want a censorship resistant Twitter, then the best way to do that would be through a piece of free and open source software. That's not to say that there couldn't be some that admin couldn't not censor, but well, I mean, it depends. It depends what the users would want. Like if the users disapprove of content like that, then maybe there could Wikipedia could be an example. For example, like anyone can write any crap on Wikipedia or make edits, but unless you're able to cite those edits, then it's unlikely that those edits are going to stay there for very long. So I hope that we move forward into a future of free and open source software. And to Josh's point, the younger generation who are more internet native, they're more acclimatized to this information revolution in which we're going through, and they're getting better at they are better at differentiating good and bad data, and quite teenage kids will be able to recognize when someone's just speaking crap or saying something truthful or untruthful. So as the human race has all this access to information, we need to be able to differentiate that data better, but then we also need to have some sort of consensus control over how that data is like platformed out to the rest of the world. And I don't think doing it through private companies is the way to go. But that's me. I'm a commie.
Moving on to the exit question. Who would you rather be? Zuckerberg, still dreaming of being just a platform, agnostic to anything on the platform, or Jack Dorsey and Twitter, who now has to track everything that goes out on Twitter? Dan Eve.
Sorry, I'd be neither, because I would build I was going to say I'll build an open source platform, and then I'm going to shill a platform that I have built later that it's not open source. So, but still, if I had loads of money, I would build an open source platform. At the moment, I just need to, can't let anyone have the idea just yet.
You could build a castle out of all the bricks that were thrown at you. Josh Gagala, who would you rather be?
I think I'd rather be Zuck. I'd just rather run the platform and say, hey, but he doesn't say hey anyway. I mean, there's like thousands of people that have to look at horrific crap every day for minimum wage and go out like, I just saw some crazy shit. I can't even mention it because the whole thing will be the World Crypto Network will be deplatformed if I probably talk to. I saw a doco on it. It's just terrifying what they have to put themselves through. Really horrific. The only way to deal with that stuff is AI, because the poor people that have to look at that stuff. But yeah, Ben is right in terms. I mean, I think private companies should. I mean, he's right in terms of this open source. In my point of view, I think private companies are far better suited than the governments, because governments are the true central source of, they can be corrupted a lot easier than like thousands and thousands and millions of private companies. But I feel that the answer is open source software and people choosing. I chose to get away from Facebook. Yeah. There's things I can't get away from Facebook, like there's likes on every single page, but I can also put blockers to block the likes. But there is definitely an amount of work I have to do to put into that, and not everyone does, and I do understand that. But yeah, Zuck.
And Ben, who would you be, Zuck or Dorsey?
Yeah, no, like I agree completely with what Josh says. And actually, I've noticed that during this entire pandemic, a lot of Bitcoiners, for example, have been de-Googling, running all their own servers and running all their own email servers and things, and that's cool. I think private companies would probably do a better job than a government running something like Twitter, for sure. Obviously, that's why it's not got government run. When I say it should have a level of democracy and consensus, I would want that through a free and open source solution, something more in line with like a digital cooperative, whatever else. But no, if I needed to pick between Jack and Zucker, I love the fact that Jack's a Bitcoiner. I love the fact that when you put in hashtag Bitcoin, you get this funny little goofy Bitcoin emoji. But in that same breath, like it unnerves me that one dude can just say, right, okay, from now on, when we put in this thing, we're going to put this little Bitcoin logo in because that's the shit I'm into.
It's a lot of
so
power, isn't it, to shape information? It's a lot of power to be able to shape information.
It's dangerous, man. It's I mean, and to that point, like, you know, arguably Twitter made Trump. You know, like the reason Trump is in power because of Twitter. So Twitter could very easily unmake him as well. I'm waiting for Trump to get banned. I think that's probably the next thing, which is going to the next big news article, which is going to happen, is Trump will get banned from Twitter, which would be hilarious. But no, Zuckerberg, Jack. I don't know, man. Like, oh Christ. Well, Jack is a Bitcoiner. You know, come on, let's bro down with Jack.
It's a trick question. I'd rather be the Winkle vibe because they have a stack of Bitcoin and they can row crew. Can you believe Quentin Tarantino said that The Social Network was the best movie of the last 10 years? That's crazy sauce. I don't know what he's talking about. I watched it once. Who cares? Moving on. Did you know the World Crypto Network has its own audio podcast that I haven't updated personally in over a week? So there's really nothing new on there. But I promise to update it this weekend. So you'll get some new audio podcasts, probably in one big clump that you don't like at all. But we'll have audio versions because that's important, because you couldn't just listen to YouTube with the video off. Check out the audio podcast for the World Crypto Network anywhere where audio podcasts are listened to, even on Spotify, I think. Check out Spotify, World Crypto Network. I'll update it this weekend, really. Issue 3, 2 sessions 2020. Beijing out of patience after long wait for Hong Kong national security law, plans to proscribe secession, foreign interference, and terrorism in the city. Opposition politicians warn that enacting the legislation through promulgation is akin to announcing the death of one country, two systems. Many different articles went out this week announcing the death and the end of Hong Kong. Article 23 that was fought by the protesters would allow the Chinese government to extradite prisoners from Hong Kong. So you get arrested in Hong Kong, but you go to prison in China. You can see the obvious problems here, in addition to the end of freedom of speech in Hong Kong and the beginning of a Chinese-style clampdown. Already this issue has spread. The protests continue, and the United States is looking into dropping their favored trade status with Hong Kong, ending a lot of Hong Kong's utility and value to China, as it previously was a different port than going straight to Beijing. Now China will just be one country, Hong Kong included. Many are considering getting out of Hong Kong. Many more will likely stay. Josh Gagala, your thoughts on Hong Kong?
Yeah, Hong Kong. It scares me that China has such massive landmass, has a huge, the CCP has control over so many people and so much land and so much space and so many taxes and so much control, yet they want Hong Kong as well. And
Taiwan.
And Taiwan.
And Taiwan, yeah.
And where does that stop? Where does it stop? Oh, someone said something bad. I mean, you can see other countries scared. And this is one thing I do where I do like Trump, is he just doesn't back down to China. I like the fact that he's not cowering like every other president, everyone. Ooh, better not say, ooh, better tippy-toe around China. No, I mean, what? So it's saying that, if there was a war with China, like a true war, it will really, what's the quote from Einstein? I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but the Fourth World War will be fought with sticks and stones. And that it really rings true. I mean, really, if there is a war with China, you can forget any sort of COVID inconveniences.
Well, and we've seen nothing but aggressive action from China, especially, I keep coming back to it, building those military bases in the South Pacific. They took these islands and they built these islands. They dumped enough dirt until the island was big enough for an airstrip. Then they built an airstrip. Then they built a little island. And now they have all these little military bases all over the Pacific. So I can't think of anything more aggressive than that. Then, of course, what they did to Hong Kong, where actual people live. Ben Ark, your thoughts on the Hong Kong situation?
Well, I mean, there is something more aggressive, and that's what the US does, which is they have US naval postings right outside China. So, you know, Chinese haven't got army postings directly outside of the US. So, but no, I mean, yeah, it sucks, man. Like, you know, people should be, if they want to, you know, have their level of freedom and detachment from China is what they've got now, then they should be able to keep that. The whole sort of China debate is very tricky. You know, China's kind of from its very beginning, you know, the people of the Yellow River, they all worked together to stop flooding, and that's how China developed as a country. And it's never colonized or done empire building like a lot of the larger civilizations. It's always just had tributary systems. So, you know, you just send money back to China. I think they're just using this entire episode to assert more control over part of their country, which is exactly what a lot of other countries are doing as well. And Josh is so right about nuclear war. Like Noam Chomsky, you know, he's spoken at length about this. The things we need to worry about as a human race are climate change, man-made or not. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to cause mass migration, civil unrest, some scary shit, and then also nuclear war. Like, and the doomsday clock. I think we're 30 seconds from midnight on the doomsday clock, and that was reset again at the beginning of the year. So yeah, COVID is scary and it sucks, and you know, we've all had to change our lives and the way we do things, but it's really just it's inconsequential when compared to nuclear war and the effects of climate on the human race. So yet another powder keg, you know, Hong Kong, Minnesota, yet another spark which could ignite the powder keg even. So yeah, worth keeping an eye on.
All right, bonus side question since you're in the UK. The UK's recently offered to have, I think, 300,000 Chinese citizens or Hong Kong citizens come back to the UK. Was the UK right to give up Hong Kong? And what do you think about the chance of these citizens to get back over? Should they do more of that, less of that?
Well, I mean, that was us in our empire building, wasn't it? That was us being assholes and going out into the rest of the world. I mean, so for example, like the British, like one of the greatest tragedies ever committed on the planet was when we enslaved the entire of China to opium. So we liked our tea, and our economy was based on tea and the trade of tea. We were selling opium to the Chinese. And then using the tea we could get from the Chinese to our entire economy was based on the trade of tea between the Chinese emperor, because I think it was estimated 1/3 of the population was addicted to opium. So the emperor of China said, okay, no more. And he closed the ports to the British. So the British stormed in with the first, I think it was the first like ship, which was like armored, you know, like a tank, stormed in and just killed loads of Chinese people, and then forced the emperor to sign a trade deal, which said that we could continue to sell them opium. So yeah, man, fuck the British, you know, like we were the worst, you know, some of the travesties we committed. And that's just like Oswald Mosley. That's another part of our great British history, which we're just not taught, you know, like the Opium Wars. So what was the question?
Well, I think it's a rare case where the British did the right thing. They gave back Hong Kong.
Of course.
They honored their 100-year treaty, but it's resulted in a disastrous effect. All of these people they left behind in Hong Kong, they having their future taken away. They had a 50-year deal.
And
it was supposed to be 50 years, and it seems like it's a lot more like, 23 years. So half 50 almost.
The people of China, so if you speak to Chinese people from Chinese mainland, then they kind of consider Hong Kong to be like this, these sort of mouthy kind of upstarts. So when the British gave back Hong Kong, it was under the condition that they would continue to have a certain level of freedoms, separate to the rest of China, and trade freedoms. But this is the part of the problem, is that that China has the support of the Chinese mainland people, which is huge. There's a big, large mass of people, and Hong Kong is actually, quite this small entity, and you can't really do anything about it. Like, if the Chinese want to, put in a law like that, what can they do? Like, I mean, people can leave and move to other countries like Britain, for example, but there's not much people in Hong Kong can really do if China. Hong Kong, it sucks, man. It sucks. Hong Kong's got the smallest tax legislation on the planet.
The real issue is here as well is
6
that
pages or something.
Beijing doesn't want the Hong Kong revolution to spread to mainland China.
I don't think that's an issue. I don't think that's something they worry about, to be honest.
I mean,
No, if you speak
they're
to
smashing
anyone from mainland China,
They're
they're not
giving
worried. The people.
their free port. It's worth it.
Yeah, no. Speak to anyone in mainland China, any citizen of mainland China, and well, not any, but the majority of people in China, they see they have the same attitude towards Hong Kong as the party does as well.
Let's go to Dan Eve, also in the UK. Your thoughts on Hong Kong?
Well, I think that continuing on what Ben said, the British were they were frightfully nasty back in the days. But then again, everyone was, and I'm half Maltese, and so Malta used to be like they were like pretty much owned by the British. So I feel it as I've been colonized, or is that? Colonized? No, but I have been. I'm not personally colonized, but you know what I mean. So I've the roots, etc. So I know that that there's every country's had bad history though. That's the problem. Like, you look back, and any country is pretty much most of them have had war or started off from war or whatever. We just need to forget about what's happened in the past and make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. That's the main thing. And at the moment, we're seeing some craziness breaking off in even with the Taiwan thing, with the WHO as well, and that the control that sort of China seem to have over the WHO a bit, or the direction they're able to sort of nudge them. There's just boo for the WHO. Check out my song, But something waffled. China, yeah. But hope the situation gets better.
Exit question. Will the world stand up for Hong Kong, and will it work? Josh Gagala.
The world wants its Amazon Prime delivery of its Chinese-made crap. They don't care about Hong Kong. Sadly. This is the beauty of a $40 fairly good mic. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, made in China. Yep. I mean, everything is made in China. You want that to continue? Then you better not, back up Hong Kong. I think that's the story arc.
Ben Ark, will the world stand up for Hong Kong? Oh, I think we lost Ben. No. Hold on, let's see. Nope, internet problems. Let's go to Dan Eve. Will the world stand up for Hong Kong?
I don't think it will, to be honest. There's too much that's going with upsetting China because of the fact that so many people, so many countries rely on them for manufacturing so much. Like even the PPE, a lot of the PPE that was being sent out, and most of it seemed to be dodgy, but it was coming from China. So it's going to take a while for those supply chains to kind of to shift over. But I think that as a knee-jerk reaction, probably a lot of people are a bit more wary about buying things that are made in China and thinking, well, actually, they're paranoid about buying something from eBay and someone sneezed on the box or something. That might happen. I don't know. There may be people out there. There's probably someone in a bunker right now with an AK-47 and a stash of army supplies. And they're like, the coronas are out there. We're not coming out. We're not going. Oh, until the corona's there. They're probably American. Let's be honest, but not posh in an English bunker because they all got blown up in the Blitz. But I can't remember what the question was now.
All right, let's go to Ben. You're back with us. Ben, will the world stand with Hong Kong?
No, because everyone has their shit manufactured in China. So sad and it sucks. But then hopefully the people of Hong Kong will have a beneficial impact on. It's Vans. It's the Vans shoe company when they did that contest for people to design a shoe, and then someone designed a shoe which was paying homage to the Hong Kong protests, and then Vans decided not to let that design compete in the competition, and everyone kicked up a fuss like, Vans, I thought you were like a cool company. It's like, we get all our shit manufactured in China, so they have a wrench over our decision making. No, capital needs to grow. China's good at making stuff and it makes stuff cheap. We can't compete with their production and the way in which they produce things. They can go from go to what's that flipping place just outside of Hong Kong, where you can go from an idea in your head to mass production within a week, and in the UK it would just take months and months and months to get to that point. No, so yeah, it all sucks and it's all sad.
We can't compete, but robots can. So
the robots can, but we can't compete against Chinese robots.
Yeah, well, it's the robots war. Who can manufacture faster?
Oh, can you imagine if we lived in a world fully automated, robots just make everything? Like we could have a forest. It'd be a forest planet, man. We go back to we'd have the Forest of Endor planet, and we'd have all of our food picked by these little robots climbing up trees and things. It's great. But that's the way forward. Oh
my God. I just imagined lying there. I was like, oh, what would you do? There's robots to do everything. Like they would do all the work. AI would do everything. So I imagine just being sat there or lying by a river and loads of, I was going to say cherubs, but robotic cherubs are feeding me grapes and wine. And I'm like, oh, life is great.
This is the point. Like ancient Greece, they didn't work. 2/3 of the population was slaves. So the Greek citizens sat around eating grapes and having orgies.
You said they don't work. Slaves probably worked quite hard. No,
yeah, no, the slaves would, but they weren't. They weren't Greek citizens. But this is the point. We could work towards a society which doesn't work. But instead of slaves, we could use the robots.
Yeah. Until you get the robot uprising, and they need power from somewhere, so we can be the battery and the Matrix.
What they said in the Matrix, where also you humans just can't be happy. They tried to give you a perfect world and you kept rejecting it. You want the struggle. You want the strife. I disagree with everyone. I think that the world is going to stand up to Hong Kong, for Hong Kong, to China. I just don't think it's going to matter. We've already seen Trump propose sanctions. We've already seen German legislators talking hard against Hong Kong, thinking about canceling the EU-China summit. I think China's already gamed all of this out. They think all of these things are acceptable losses. I don't think they've lost anything they care about, and they're going to get one of the two things that we know they do care about. Number one, Hong Kong. Number two, Taiwan or Formosa. So the Chinese march continues. Never mind the Sudetenland or Austria or Poland. China has always had those countries. They've always been part of territorial China. Moving on to issue 4, I think it is. The world just keeps going this week. Coronavirus. Are states reopening ahead of White House guidelines? A recent report showed that all states except for the state of Illinois had not shown a downward trend of 14 days in coronavirus cases. If you don't have a downward trend according to the president's own orders on coronavirus, you're not supposed to open. But the truth is, everyone in the United States is tired of being on lockdown. They've got lockdown fever. They want to go get their haircuts. They want to go discount shopping. They want to go to casinos and malls and crowded restaurants and crazy pool parties out in the summer. And they want to have a good time, and they don't care about the virus anymore. So they've decided to ignore it and to pretend that it never happened, despite 100,000 dead people and the simple fact that the virus is still out there. Let's see. Let's go to Dan Eve first. Dan, are you ready? What do you think about the United States reopening perhaps early, and the rest of the world where they have contained the coronavirus reopening? Do you think that we'll see a second wave soon?
I'm still like fairly optimistic on thinking it's spread a lot further than we actually thought it has, initially, and so we've probably got a bit more, or I think hopefully we've got a bit more herd immunity. But from the UK side, I can't talk about the US because I've had my head down in work, really like some cool projects, which I'll waffle on about later. But in the UK, Dominic Cummings is the guy that basically, or one of the people who's like, he's not even like elected. He's just like, I don't know. He's like some scruffy dude that turns up and helps Boris out. He's like his friend or something. And he got caught like doing a 250-mile trip to when we were in lockdown, like the peak of lockdown. And then when he said when he was called up on it, he said, "Oh yeah, whilst he was there, they said you also went to a castle, to hang out." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I had to drive 60 miles because my eyesight wasn't very good, so I needed to drive 60 miles to make sure that I could drive the 250 back the next day or whatever it was." But as much as he's a complete twat, everyone can thank him because we're now like they expedited opening up early because they need to take attention from Doris and his crew.
Amazing story. I didn't know about the castle part. That's great. Ben Ark, your thoughts on the coronavirus and perhaps reopening too soon?
Yeah, I mean, like, there are checks on power. So, I mean, I do think in the US, generally, the US citizens do want to just reopen, and it's going to happen. But in the UK, we've had a similar thing with Boris saying that he's going to open schools in a month's time or whatever. And I still pay my dues for the teaching union, even though I don't teach anymore. And I get emails more or less daily from the teaching union saying we're not fucking going back to school. It doesn't matter what Boris is saying. So there are some checks on power here when it comes to some of the unions who are, I mean, so you need kids to go back to school so their parents can then go back to work. But the teaching unions have said that they don't think that the teachers can go back to be safe if they go back to work, and they can't. There's certain assurances which they want from government, which government can't give them just yet. That being said, I know in the US it kind of works a little bit different. If they decide to open up, they can reopen. It's a choice. If you want to reopen, you're going to have infections, and then you're going to have people dying, and it's going to suck. But I mean, that's going to happen anyway, I suppose, but over a longer drawn out time frame where maybe the health services can cope with it. So, it's I think what we'll probably have in the UK is kind of taking the foot off the brake, and then letting people get infected and trying to keep it flat so health service can cope with the pressure. But I mean, man, I'm with Dan. I do really hope that a lot more people have been infected than we think have been infected. But there's the pessimist in me can't help but think that that's not true. And we just need data. We need testing, and then we need contact tracing, and we need more data, and then we can make informed decisions. But making a rash decision and just saying, yeah, everyone, society start engaging again as you were before, as if nothing happened, I think can obviously be dangerous. And I hope it works for the US. Good luck.
Well, and we did have a similar situation here where Donald Trump, as president, commanded the churches to open. He doesn't even really necessarily have authority over churches. But at the same time, just as you're saying, Ben, individual church leaders said, hey, we're not ready to open up yet. We don't really want to get all of our people together in one big room, have them all cough and sneeze on each other, potentially spread this virus all around. And your reward for going to church is bringing the virus home to your family. So I think there was a lot of level-headed. There have been some people that have said no, but certainly there are other people, their entire business depends on reopening. These people with the pool parties and all the drinks and all the alcohol, like they can't have that without that party thing. Like the drinking, the whole selling, the whole vacation thing.
Well, I mean, if
doesn't
they want
work.
to sacrifice their grandparents for that, then whatever. That's it's their choice.
Well,
I
and
suppose.
that's something that I think maybe they're willing to make as a decision for the older people. There's a lot of lack of concern for the elderly here, but additionally, this could cause permanent damage to the young people. It's a respiratory disease. There's been anecdotal reports of people who used to be marathon runners. Now they can't barely breathe. Other people who used to be very buff and huge come out of it very small and weak. It's still a very strong virus, even if it doesn't kill you. So I think a lot of people are being short-sighted. But then again, they got to get those haircuts. They got to buy that discount stuff. They got to go to the beach. I've never been to the beach. They haven't been in a long time. They really got to go. Josh Gagala, your thoughts on the coronavirus and the reopening of many countries?
Well, it's only you have to eventually. I mean, what are you going to keep the world closed forever? The thing is, even if you have one case in your country, then there's a second wave coming. So the only thing you can do is try to save your crappy, shitty healthcare system that's obviously at fault here. But let's not blame the healthcare system or the lack of infrastructure and the massive spending on the war machine. Let's blame the virus. Anyway, you have to open eventually, and here in Germany, they've opened for 15 days now, pretty much. Restaurants are all open. They've got certain make sense rules, and people are sort of making them up by themselves anyway. They don't really need a government telling them what to do, because people are fearful for their lives too. They don't want a respiratory disease. So people wear masks when they go inside somewhere. The waiters and help staff wear masks. They take them off as well. You use a lot of hand sanitizer. It's a new little world for a while, but I think eventually we're going to have herd immunity one way or the other, and that's the only way to stop the virus. There's no point hiding at home. I think you need a better way of protecting the elderly. Most Western countries generally tend to just throw their elderly into nursing homes, and so the care really is not that good anyway there. But then you also get maybe that's even a better system, because places like Spain and Italy, where the elderly live with the families at home, that could be more dangerous if you have an open side where everyone's walking around and having contact. But at the end of the day, there's also another side to this, which is a really sad side, and that's domestic abuse. And domestic abuse is through the roof, especially when you get massive frustration because you're losing your job or you don't have enough money, and you're already a crazy guy or a woman that's abusing the husband. I don't know. There's both sides, but generally it's men abusing women and women being totally helpless, being stuck in a house with their abuser. I saw a horrific story out of Russia where it's really sort of showcased there. There was a woman with two hands that had been chopped off by the abusive husband, and to leave the house you have to have a phone with a QR code that tells you you're allowed to leave. And so even if you have the keys and you walk out, it's still not good enough and safe enough for you. And so seeing both sides of the story here, where there is a lot of bad that happens from forcing everyone to lock down, and eventually you have to open up. You can't run society where everyone sits at home. Somebody needs to man the farms. Someone needs to do all this stuff. These essential workers, he lasts so long. So I think it's time that we have appropriate measures, like really taking care and isolating the elderly and people that are immunocompromised, and let's slowly get back to work. That's the only way I see it. But do it sensibly.
Exit question. Dan Eve, will we see another lockdown this fall, globally or just in the US?
I don't think you will. No, I reckon there's enough. Like, I know there's vaccine trials. They're getting a lot better with the therapeutics. They realize that slapping people on a ventilator just kills them. I'm not laughing at that, as in, like, there was so much weight to, well, okay, yeah, we're all the ventilators. We're all the ventilators in the world, and everyone's trying to buy ventilators, and then they're like, no, don't use the ventilators. No, the ventilators are terrible. Don't use the ventilators. So, but I think that now, if there is a second wave, think about it like this: the biggest panic from the first wave was that, like, no one was stocked up. They were like, oh god, idiots, we should have stocked the squirrels with the nuts, should have stocked our nuts for the winter, just in case the pandemic comes or whatever, and stocked our masks. But now everyone's been on overdrive, so we're going to have, like, equipment all over the place. There's not going to run out of hand sanitizer, so and stuff like that. And so I think it's going to be kept under control a lot easier.
Ben Ark, second lockdown this fall?
Yeah. I mean, I think, Josh, I'm not meaning to dox you, but I know you're in Germany.
No.
And Germany have handled the situation incredibly well. And Germans just inherently have, like, a natural social distancing from one another. And they're very good at also being very, like you say, just being sensible and taking sensible measures. So I imagine somewhere like Germany it's ready to start opening up. Whereas I think maybe some of the decision making in how do you educate? I don't think it helps that a lot of the people who are in charge don't give. You've got Angela Merkel, who's an physics professor or something, and then the US have a sort of reality TV star for their president. So I don't think that helps. That he says quite sensationalist things and has often kind of talked down the crisis, whereas other politicians, like in Germany's are much more scientific and evidence based. So I think probably opening up Germany is a good idea. Clearly your health service is handling it, and clearly the citizens will conduct themselves in a way which isn't going to infect everyone. I think in the US, however, I don't know. I just I will look at through the US through the YouTube, whatever, or through the TV. So, but I do feel that if they just open up, there will be another wave, a lot of death and unrest, and it's going to be very sad, and then there'll be another lockdown. But I mean, I suppose the point is that we're all autonomous beings, and even if you are in a country which has opened up, then observe social distancing, wear a face mask. Like, I'm amazed at how many Bitcoiners haven't seized upon the face mask. You got Jameson Lopp doing all these talks for years about trying to obscure identity in front of CCTV. That was the perfect excuse. We can all walk around with face masks all the time. Yeah. And they don't know where we are. They don't know who we are. So it's like, even if you don't believe in coronavirus and you don't think that it's anything to worry about and it's just a cold, whatever, wear a face mask when you go out. Brilliant.
Yeah. Just the other day, I went to the post office and I had wore my cowboy hat, and I had like this Red Dead Redemption style mask over here, walking in with a duffel coat. I just looked so sketchy, man. I looked like such a sketch. And everyone's like, oh, yes, come in, sir. And I went over and I really thought I could stick them up, mother. It's amazing. But
that is one of the fears with the rally yesterday in Minnesota. Maybe one of the reasons it got violent so quickly, or they started destroying things so quickly, is that everyone was emboldened because they were wearing a mask. Even the reporter who was reporting on the show tried to keep wearing a mask. He clearly was sweating through it and talking through it, and it wasn't quite working. And eventually he gave up and he tried a different mask and all those kind of things. But to see these masks become popular is quite a surprise. And like Josh is saying, very, very bad for facial recognition, very good for individual humans. We even talked about it on the Bitcoin group before the coronavirus was the only issue in the world we could talk about it. We talked about facial recognition. Josh Gagala, your thoughts? Will there be another lockdown in the fall?
I don't think so, because lockdowns only really work in the very, very beginning, like truly work. The only way lockdowns work is to flatten the curve, to protect hospitals. But if you're trying to stop the virus, they only really work in the beginning. That's why China was so successful. They could really smash it in the beginning and stop it. I mean, I don't know the true story. Maybe they have got a heap of cases still. I'm not sure, but what the narrative was, what came out of China was that they stomped this thing in the beginning. Of course, it escaped the mainland, and of course we have the mess we have now. But I really like what Cryptoraptor said. You know, really, it's everyone is ready now. When I started prepping in February, like mid-February, I started seeing this thing in Wuhan. I already masks were sold out, and then I went from drugstore to drugstore to drugstore, trying to ask, hey, have you got masks? No, sold out. No. We had all these Asians coming in first because they've like used to it. They're like, no, masks, and grabbed them all. But this now, even, it's only like, 2 months now, or 3, and masks everywhere. I mean, they're not N95s, but they're better than nothing. And I think I was looking actually at the latest trend in flu, and the flu trend's down like crazy because everyone's so careful. So I think we'll have. I don't think we'll have another lockdown. I think people are just over it and B, more prepared.
Sadly, I have to disagree with Josh on this one. I get what you're saying, that we do have to open the economy at some point, or we do have to have some workers continue to work as they've been doing with the so-called essential grocery workers, the essential meat packing plants, these essential truckers. There's a whole secret system we don't even know about that's all very essential, that's keeping us running. But I really do wish in the United States we could have gone 2 more weeks, maybe a month and a half of the lockdown. If you look at the curve, we managed to flatten it, but we didn't quite get that other half where the curve goes down. And that means to me that the virus is still out there and the curve could go up. So
But I think
unfortunately, I'm expecting a second lockdown and a second outbreak of the virus, and it's all going to be preventable. Like what Ben was saying, it's going to be much sadder because it's preventable. But Josh, I'll allow you to talk. You can talk.
Sorry, mate. With the curve, you really have to look at not cases, because it's only the amount you measure. It's about dead. That's the curve you got to measure, because that's the only curve that's truly measurable. Now, you have to measure also corona deaths, which is also a little bit trickier to measure, because he was suffering already or whatever. But really, the curve has to be hospital capacity is the X and the Y in this. You have to measure deaths and you have to measure hospital capacity. So I'm not sure where the US stands in terms of hospital capacity for people, but here in Germany we have I think it was like 1,200 beds being used by COVID patients and 7,500 extra beds. And we're inviting people from France now, from Russia, from all these countries to, hey, bring your sick over here, because we got capacity. And I think the US will end up doing that in terms of different states having more capacity than others. And really, I'm not sure. I haven't been keeping too much track of the US, but the real troubling thing about the US, I feel, is the lack of health insurance, which is backing the system, which is privately.
We've also seen a politicization of the virus, a politicization of mask wearing. What's common sense in Asian countries has become a left and right issue here, a freedom issue of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. So I'm not sure that we're really going to get the virus under control. If we look at historically the map of the 1918 flu pandemic, the Spanish flu, it goes up, then there's a huge, massive second outbreak. And while it might not happen in Germany, I think it's going to happen here in the US. And again, I hope I'm wrong on this. Like, Josh has some good points, and I hope it doesn't happen, but we'll have to see. Moving on to issue 5. The show never ends. Bitcoin is up by 16% post-halving. How about that, Bitcoin? The third Bitcoin halving happened on May 11th during the coronavirus chaos, but the king of crypto seems unstoppable. Despite the biggest financial trials of our times, Bitcoin was able to climb by 16% since the halving took place. According to this article, it was trading at around 8,436 last Monday and started an upturn, briefly touching the $10,000 mark, a bullish surge erasing its weekend crash. It is currently going up past 9,700 at the time of this article. Let's go to Ben Ark. Your thoughts on the Bitcoin price following the halving?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's kind of what we expected. Like it wasn't going to shoot up immediately, but it is going to start going up, particularly because of the current world economic crisis we're in. I know what Paul Tudor of Tudor Investments, he started investing in Bitcoin, US billionaire, and he said it's the fastest horse on the track. He using it as a hedge against the infinite quantitative easing, which all these countries are doing. I don't think we're going to have the level of inflation that some countries like Venezuela have had, but I think that it's going to clearly you don't want to leave your money in cash, and with gold being all bought up, like Bitcoin makes so much sense. And I think actually to gold, I think the stock to flow is almost the same as gold now. So it would take, I think it's 50 years to mine the amount of Bitcoin which are in circulation currently, if it was kept at a certain rate, at the same rate now, without any more halvings. And I think gold is 58 years. So I think we're kind of in line with gold. So the rich people, the billionaires, the people with money who they want to put somewhere which would be safe and they want to diversify their portfolios using Bitcoin. And as we all know, like the technology and the momentum behind the Bitcoin is so much better than it was. So it only makes sense that it's going to go up. Yeah, I mean it's as we predicted. It's not going to be immediate, but it will be fairly soon. It will go up a lot. Particularly once it's broken through $10,000. Is it broken through $10,000 yet? Where are we?
It broke through, but then it went back down again.
So it's doing that like wedgie triangle shit, isn't it? Towards butting against $10,000.
It tested 10,000 3 different times. Then it dipped, I think, all the way to maybe 8,600. Then it popped back up to 10,000. Now it's in the 9,500 range.
So exciting. 10,000 then.
There you go. Dan Eve, your thoughts on the price of Bitcoin following the halving?
Well, I think I wasn't expecting a massive mega pump, to be honest. I just thought, and we talk about whether the pricing's halved in or not. I just didn't think it's the right time. If we weren't in coronavirusville, people would have money. So, like, I mean, probably a lot of people did use their checks, checks from the US to buy Bitcoin, but a lot less people have a lot less money. A lot more people have a lot less money right now, and mainly don't have jobs. And short term, holding Bitcoin may not be an option for them because they've got bills to pay, and not just because they're normal bills, but they've now lost X days of work, and there's all sorts of other scenarios. But is it? I think it was like Grayscale that have been buying a third of all mined between, or is it Grayscale and Cash App that have been buying a third or half of all mined Bitcoin? And there's obviously, still the volumes are slowly on the. Sorry, my dog keeps on. Dave Growl's here, and he keeps on nudging me, so I think he just wants to sort of get on screen a bit. The Bitcoin, moon and stuff. No, not just the moon, but actual utilities and services using Bitcoin. That's what's going to make it grow, and more on that later.
All right, let's go to Josh Kagala. Your thoughts on the price of Bitcoin following the halving?
It took from 1990, China grew from a peasant country almost to competing with America in the trillions of an economy. The internet has a native currency. The internet if you think of it like a country, has a native currency now, and it's called Bitcoin. And it's your time to buy a part of it, or no, I hate that actually. Sorry, not buy a part of it, earn a part of it, and you should earn it, you should spend it, you should buy it, you should do whatever you can with it and use it and remove yourself from the ridiculous state apparatus, this controlled nonsense. Start using free and open source software, start using Bitcoin, because it will, we all use the internet now. With COVID, you see how fast the world's changed. It's going to continue to go more and more online as more and more companies start seeing that they don't need, that the home office is fine. People will be online. They'll be using online money. I used it today to buy some Indian food. It was fantastic.
Nice.
It'll go up.
Definitely agree with all that. And I think it's time to call on the seer of seers, the prognosticator of prognosticators, the magic 8-ball that can predict the price of Bitcoin. And of course, we're going to ask the magic 8-ball, will the price of Bitcoin be higher next week? Here we go. Reaching deep into the spirit world. It is certain. It is certain the price will be higher this time next week. We still have to go around the horn here. We got to ask everybody. Ben, Ark, will the price be higher this time next week? You're going with or against the ball here?
Up.
Ben says up, sticking with the ball. Dan, Eve, higher or lower next week?
I'm gonna say higher. Yeah, because I don't often go lower.
Let's go to Josh.
Higher.
Higher or lower?
Well, if you look at the stochastics and the markings going left and right, it'll all say higher. Probably
and I'm
higher.
going to stick with higher too. The ball has spoken. Everyone agrees. That means it's definitely going lower. You should always do the opposite of
Proper
what we
goal.
say,
Proper
except
goal says
that
down.
one time where you should do what we say, because really we said the opposite. Moving on to issue 6. It's a jam-packed 6-issue show. What a special treat. Issue 6, John Carvalho's Strike for Lightning. Twitter user John Carvalho, Bitcoin Airlog, well known for once angering Roger Ver to the point that Roger had to use a 2-finger salute, not the fingers that you're thinking of. And John is at it again on Twitter, politely asking Bitcoin companies about their plans for Lightning. And I think it's time. I think it's time to start asking these companies. He asked Cash App, why don't they have Lightning? BitMEX, Gemini, Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, even Blockstream and their Green wallet. I joined in and asking, why doesn't Blockstream Green have Lightning yet? So I think it's time to stand up to these companies and ask them why they don't have Lightning yet. Let's go to Ben, Eve. What do you think about the strike for Lightning? Should we be asking companies to accept Lightning and to finally allow it as an option? Go ahead.
You said
Ben Eve.
You said Ben Eve. I was torn. I was like, I thought it was Dan, Ben,
Four
or me.
3-letter names.
Squish
Go to
us
Ben,
together.
then we'll go to Dan.
Oh, well, I'm not. Oh, you did that like John Cavallo, man. I mean, brilliant. What a Bitcoiner. He's always been on the right side of history, throughout Bitcoin's history. I strongly recommend you read some of his work on back in the day, like with the Bitcoin Foundation when he was part of that, and how he assessed it. And he's just a voice of reason in the space. And he's right. Why aren't these companies using Lightning? Like, why? And it's a good question to ask Blockstream. Like, obviously they have Liquid and they have that project which they're interested in, and it's a cool technology. There's some proprietary aspects, which it has different functions than something like Lightning, but it doesn't mean that they can't support Lightning. And I actually think that at the same time as John Cavallo having his rant, Adam Back was having a similar rant about more companies accepting Lightning. So I assume that Green Wallet will have some Lightning functionality at some time. But Lightning's wonderful. It works so well. I use it a lot, and I'm building stuff on it. The people who are building things on it, like if you go on some of the Telegram groups, they're all like really smart, interesting people, and they understand the power of just being able to send microtransactions for nothing. It's for near zero, if not zero fees. And there's so much to we'll look at some of the Spectrum RGB tokens and stuff, which will be built on top of Lightning at some point. Like, that's so exciting to see that happening. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. Why aren't these companies accepting using Lightning in their infrastructure? Yeah, we want to see more of it. And he's right to call out those companies. Who did he call out? Did he call out which exchanges? Any exchanges or?
Kraken's in there, BitMEX is in there, Gemini is in there, and again, it's hardly calling out. I mean, we're dramatizing it maybe a little by saying calling out. He said very politely to these companies. He asked them on Twitter. Yeah, he asked them all at once, so it's kind of an event. But I like that. I think that's a good idea, and I think he's willing to ask any other country or any other company as well. That's not on this list. So if you think of one that's not on this list, I thought of Blockstream Green because I use it, and I'm wondering where the Lightning update is. I want to use the Lightning Network. If I want to use the best wallet, I thought it was Blockstream Green. But if it's not, I have to go to some other wallet to get my Lightning action. That doesn't make sense to me. They should fix that. Let's just
one more point. Let's not forget as well that Lightning, the idea of a unidirectional payment channel, using a payment channel was, when envisioned by Satoshi, was envisioned sending funds to exchanges at high frequency. So it makes sense that some of these companies accept Lightning.
And a lot of the exchanges celebrated it when it was announced as a way for people to move their money from exchanges. They could finally stop using Litecoin or some kind of less popular Bitcoin-like network. Josh Gagala, your thoughts on Lightning? Is it time for companies to accept it? Should they add it to their wallets?
Oh yeah, definitely. We at Vaultoro, we were the first exchange in the world, 2.5 years ago to implement it. And we're a very small company compared to some of these big companies, and back then there was no support. Like, it was really reckless. Like, reckless was not just a hashtag. It was craziness. And we implemented it very, not to its full extent. But, saying that, we launched Vaultoro 2 and we haven't implemented it yet, re-implemented it yet because of resources and just to get other things moving. But as soon as we can clear up those resources, I'm onto it. And it's super important because we have already seen in a couple of, over the last couple of weeks where block sizes have been starting to get full again. We're starting to see the rise in prices. Now is the time, folks, to open up channels to while the prices of block space is a little bit cheaper. Open up channels. Now is the time to create channels for these companies. Should be creating channels as well, because if we do have another massive, like, crazy bull run and the blocks start getting full, and that's when you start seeing scammers coming along and saying, "Oh, my blockchain can do it better." Yeah, but that's because no one uses you. And this is the problem. Then everyone starts this speculation into these total shit coins. I'm not saying all alts are shit, but it definitely brings in the scams when these are full. So the whole ecosystem now has to do it. And back in the early days of Bitcoin, we used to go from shop to shop, and that's how Roger Ver got Bitcoin Jesus as a name, because he was like so into doing that, and he'd be like shop to shop, and we'd all be cheering on, "Yeah, go Rog, man, go to that shop," and we'd cheer each other on to try and get people to accept Bitcoin. Now that stopped a long time ago. No one really does that anymore. But now's the time to go to the Bitcoin places that have the Bitcoin businesses and tell them to use Lightning. We have to get that sort of that energy back as a community, because are the community. We are Bitcoin. We are all Satoshi. We need to go out there and get Bitcoin to the next stage. And that is pre-confirmed transactions that can be sent in milliseconds and very fast and more obfuscated. It's such a beautiful technology. It works so well. Try it out. And if you're sitting there in some sort of echo chamber where you're like, oh, it's a scam, your Lightning is Blockstream, and just try Lightning. Stop just calling everyone out when you haven't tried it. And so many people that I've talked to that do go on about like how everything's crap and BSV is the bomb. It's so much better because it's got infinite block space. You just try it. Try using Lightning and you'll see how awesome it is, because you've got the full power of Bitcoin, the full power of this massive network that can never be 51%ed really anymore. Those days are gone. And you can now pre-confirm a transaction and then send it back and forth. It's beautiful. Do it.
All right, let's go to Dan Eve this time.
All right. I was like Dan Ark. I was thinking Dan Ark would be pretty good. I'm just going to change my virtual background, you see, because I've got something special. So we're talking about Lightning implementation. And is that, maybe this one? Oh, damn. Mirror my video? Don't mirror it. Jeez. All right. Okay. I don't have a great, oh, geez. Right. I'll just put that up anyway. I'm going to share my screen. So it really doesn't matter, all of that. Where is it? Okay. Share screen. So I've been working with Ben on Lightning. On the LM bit. So Ben's been working on this amazing software, LM bits, and it's totally sick. It's absolutely amazing. And you'll get a short demo of how we've implemented it. Am I able to share my screen, Thomas? It says disabled.
Oh, I don't know why it says disabled.
Oh, you've disabled me. So it hasn't actually been too long actually implementing it. It's been really simple API with LM bits to create, essentially we create one-time faucets enabled, and that's how people are able to withdraw. So we will do. It's just in testing at the moment. So if I'll go share my little ding dong.
Try it again.
Oh yeah, here we go. Infinite. Oh, right, so if someone's got a Lightning wallet handy, I'm just sharing the screen. So, for example, we're building loads of stuff out, but you can earn Satoshis from doing surveys like Polefish, Theorem Reach surveys. We've got general other stacking tasks like supporting social media and competitions and stuff like that. And if I give an example, this is tester.com. So like a quiz. So 1,000 Satoshis. I know the answer already because it's our little arcade game, which is also open source, which your reward's been successfully received. And here's Pumpy Bitcoin. I'm really proud of this. It's I just basically, I didn't say hijacked, but I took the code of a Flappy Bird clone. And so you can just I don't know if you can hear, guys, that it's that terrible music. And there's little miners as well. Look at the miners. Those are like ant miners. But anyway, eventually we'll have a proper hardcore arcade where you can daily leaderboards, and we'll be giving sats to the leaders. We'll be doing games where you can challenge someone, so you can do a bet to challenge someone on one of our games, and then you can challenge your mates or whatever. And then other stuff, but I'll go to the payment sort of process. So if anyone's quick enough, or whoever's quick enough, I'm just going to verify the tasks that I've just done, and I'll verify those. And so if I was the end user and everything is just done in the background verification wise, I'd then go onto my account. I go to my asset balances. I would then go and see there's my 1,100 Satoshis that I've earned. I'm working on there's two columns, so you use referrals as well. So if you refer someone, you get 5% of all Bitcoin they earn. Currently, that's forever, but it may not be. So that's a star sign. But for now, we've been going for a while, but mainly shitcoins. And we did have a shitcoin called Gigs, which the old CEO created, but I have now taken control, and so Gigs is going to be removed. Well, it's already removed from the platform, but we're going Lightning and primarily. And so I'm going to withdraw. Anyway, too much talk. Withdraw my Satoshis, get my QR code, and some lucky person is just about to claim 1,100 sats if anyone's watching with a Lightning wallet. So just there's 1,100 sats, and you are test at rewardportal.com.
So people can
someone claim it.
People can
Someone
answer
claim it.
surveys, and then they can get paid in Lightning for answering surveys, right, Dan?
Yeah.
At rewardportal.com.
Oh, someone get.
And you can
someone's taking it.
Nice. That was
you could
quick,
also,
man.
as a company,
very
if you wanted to pay people to take a survey, you could pay the people
Oh yeah.
in Lightning to take your survey. So it's a way
It's gonna
of
change the world. There's gonna be like micro task, guerrilla marketing with oh sorry, Dave. Guerrilla marketing with just pick. Imagine this, yeah. Imagine like your company, you want to advertise, and so you with geographic location, you say, right, is anyone by the Leaning Tower of Pisa? And if so, the next, the first person to kind of accept the challenge or whatever to get the reward, they've got to, shout, "Oh, Pepsi is the best," or something like that. I don't know. So, but it's all really cheap, and it's like, yeah, for just loads of stuff. I don't know yet. There's loads. I haven't even thought of what everything we're going to put on there. But just go there, earn some sats, real basic stuff.
All right, check it out at Reward Portal. All right, Dan, you just stop sharing your screen.
Oh yeah.
But all right, let's move on to the exit question. Which company do you think will adopt Lightning first? Given this list of just any Bitcoin company that hasn't accepted it, Ben Ark, who will adopt it first?
Well, I mean, as Josh and as Dan have both pointed out, John Covello, asking these companies to accept Bitcoin, Lightning, Bitcoin over Lightning Network, great, but give props to the people who are implementing it into their software. Vaultoro, well done. It's amazing. The first exchange to have Lightning on Vaultoro, and Dan implementing it for Reward Portal is absolutely perfect. And frazzles my brain because I'm used to I get excited about paying microtransactions for something, but then to do something and get a microtransaction back, reversing it, the application of doing that is there's so many things you can do with it. So it's time to kind of be creative and think about outside the box and what's possible. So cool. But no, I mean, I hope all those companies start using Lightning Network. I don't really know which companies don't accept it, because I'm primarily engaged with the companies which do accept it, because that's what I get excited about. So hopefully, John Covello will do a follow-up Twitter thread on all the companies who are accepting Bitcoin over Lightning Network, and how cool that is, and how we should give them props and support those products.
Josh Gagala, who will be first?
Come on, Kraken, you can do it. You can do it. Come on, Jesse. I think Kraken. I would like to see more wallets, but wallets it's a bit of a bigger step because they might want to have to integrate with opening channels with the other funds and get a bit trickier. But an exchange like Kraken should be able to at least do step one, which is funding, and withdrawing they can do later. But yeah, maybe Vaultoro. Thanks, Jeremy. We have basically we want to get the Glassbox protocol back up because this is our transparency protocol. We became the most transparent exchange in the world because of it, and since the relaunch, we haven't recoded it, so we're busy recoding it.
Let's go to Dan Eve. Who will be first?
We will be first, but no one knows us. So, but I've got a shield. Sorry. Oh God! So I thought someone was banging on the bloody wall, but it's the bot giving me. It's the dog. It always scares me. Jeez, I thought I was being attacked or something. So yep, LM Bits. You got to check out LM Bits. It's literally just made the process so incredibly easy. It's awesome software. Really, really good software. And yeah, I mean, I just think that there's all these solutions like that Ben's got with LM Bits, and all the infrastructure that we've got is making it so much easier for people to actually accept and use Lightning, and that that's slowly going to add more weight to people, to its use case, and the fact that the network's being used a lot more, that's going to, I think, gain a lot of popularity because people will see it. And actually, the developer, we're arguing at the moment. My dev, he's he thinks that the withdrawal should be like quite high, and I'm like, no. Like, why not just have like, I don't know, 50? Why not just 50 sats or something like that? And he's like, no, well, that's crazy. And I was like, no, but it's 50 sats, man. Like, why not? Why not prove that you can literally have ultra micro payments? So I might win the battle. Hopefully I do.
Well, you just want to make sure they don't drain your accounts there. But it turns out it's a trick question. Looking at all the companies on these lists, certainly I root for, looking at this, Blockstream Green really should have it. Cash App should have it. They're very cutting edge. They're very new. And then also I think Binance as an outside competitor should have it. They're just very hip. I don't know why they don't have it already as of just one more thing where they can claim, hey, we're the hippest. But the true answer to this question is Coinbase will be last. Coinbase will be last, no matter what the technology is, no matter what the business model is. Coinbase will always be last. They'll always be following. I don't know why this is. I don't know why they don't have any leadership. They were last to batching transactions. Pro tip, open source software did that 5 years ago. We were batching transactions with open source software. So I don't know what's wrong with Coinbase, but I know they'll be last. Let's move on to predictions or story of the week. Ben, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
I'm going to play with reward portal. I was just thinking then, like, could you do some sort of email campaign where you send out an email with some sort of like thing they've got to read and then answer a question on, to kind of answer a question or something, and then when they answer the question, they then get another email with their reward being sent to them, like automating it so you just get the reward straight away or something. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, we can do that for you, Sam. We can do that.
Prediction of the week, just
Sorry.
This is what's cool, that you're all part of a conversation, aren't we? We're all like building in little things, and then someone else takes those ideas further and builds stuff. So Dan, like you can, when someone's built some software, you can then build something on top of that software. So I could build like that email campaign on top of something like Reward Portal, or you can build services on top of Reward Portal as well. So something which I built the past couple of days, which I'll share as well. I won't be long. I know Thomas, you don't like it when we do these big long demos. We just get excited about the stuff we're building, man.
And I got to say,
what can we say?
So both you guys build amazing stuff. Really, always impressed.
Says you with your flipping glass box. So cool. Anyway, that's enough circle jerking. So what's going on? Oh yeah. So LNURL, which Dan's using for withdrawals. The way in which it works is your wallet is like doing a GET request, and then it's getting an invoice and doing a thing and a thing. So an LNURL is kind of like a treasure map for your wallet to go and find the Bitcoin. So I kind of thought like an easy way to sell Bitcoin over Lightning is to sell an LNURL, and you're not actually selling Bitcoin, you're selling a treasure map to the Bitcoin as the LNURL. And I've also hidden it behind, so if I share, can you see that? I've also hidden it behind this goofy idea about buying these little space invaders, which I call LNvaders, which is just silly. But I got like a cool domain name, so I quite like that. So this is honestly very experimental. And if anyone out there decides to buy some Bitcoin on Lightning using this thing, like, fuck, you're reckless as hell. Like, I feel nervous using it. So the idea is that you can just you can buy one of these LNvaders. So there's like a $5 LNvader there. And then it doesn't work because, it's a live demo. Oh, there we go. It works. And then you can go to your basket. You can add like multiple ones to it. I've got a limited amount, so I think you can. There's only like 4 of each which you could possibly buy. And then you buy that, and then you get emailed. I've actually got. I think I have to stop share and then like share the other thing. So what you get emailed like this little unique Space Invader, and then it's got like this one of these LN URLs attached to it. So you get a unique Space Invader or unique-ish. So the thing I'm saying is I'm selling digital art, unique digital art, and it comes with this little treasure map which you can then use to go and get Bitcoin. I'm not actually selling Bitcoin. So I'm selling unique-ish and a bit shit digital art, which you could, if you scan that, then you might be able to get some Bitcoin from it. I think that's like a $5 amount of Bitcoin there. So that's probably like a gazillion Satoshis or something. I can't even do the thing. So that was pretty fun. I've just been building that the past week. And it's a bit goofy, and hopefully I won't get put in jail for breaking KYC stuff. But I think we can sort of scam our way out of it by using these complicated and confusing technologies.
I'm really excited to see. Are you allowed to talk about the other one you're working on? Is that?
Oh no, I'm not. But the reason I made that was because I got another thing I'm making, and I got another thing which I've been working on, and like I needed an easy way for people to be able to buy Bitcoin. But in fact, then an easy way would be to earn Bitcoin, which is even better, which is using something like Reward Portal.
All right, let's go to Josh Kagala. Josh Kagala, story of the week or prediction. Go ahead.
My prediction is that people are going to jump onto rewardportal.com and check it out. They're going to also check out Ben's amazing rare pepes on Lightning there. Those as was it? Someone said it in the chat. I think it's amazing. I love all this Lightning stuff. It's great, but I look with amazement at the world right now, and I just don't want to predict anything because it's so nightmarish what's happening. I really feel for everyone that's suffering and that are going to continue to suffer, especially if riots start breaking out and shops start getting looted and all those people without jobs. And wow, it's a crazy time. It's a crazy time. So my prediction is count your blessings. Count your blessings, because the world changes like that.
Dan, Eve.
I predict that I've predicted that Bitcoin will go up, so I've got to be consistent. So I'll continue to say that. I predict that loads of you will earn some Bitcoin on Reward Portal. You may not be able to like the Lightning withdrawals coming very, very soon. We're pretty much just testing it and final bits and bobs. I was going to try and get it done for out for 1st of June, but it's my girlfriend's birthday, and she would freaking kill me if I was flapping around all day on pumpy Bitcoin or whatever, trying to get that out. So my prediction is that I am going to do my utmost to help reverse these troubled times by giving people the opportunity to earn Bitcoin. And if you want to list on our site or anything like that, just like get in touch with me. We're going to change the world. It's going to change the world of working on its head.
I think we're going to head towards the end of the show today. It's been kind of a long one. We had a lot of topics. We discussed a lot of serious issues. I think I just want to close by quoting Deke Jackson from the fucking news, FKN News. He always used to end his broadcast this way, and will mostly end ours this way. He said, until next time, the planet's fucked. It's all your fault, and there's nothing you can do about it. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Where's the right button? End meeting is not the right button.